guess I'm alone today. That's okay. I'll just keep pretending there's somebody here. The Battle of Garrideb.
Yes, on the day you're referring to. The wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. I can't recall the reason now. Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out, though, and got the window open.
Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him.
Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say if I've noticed if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. That bally thing in the victim's back really was one of ours. You'll have to do a job proving it, I think.
It sounds as though it was quite a battlefield in your household that evening.
Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. We had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield, you're just a gnat's whisker away from death at any moment. Are we still talking about the marital quarrel here?
Well, I must say, I am dubious that this testimony will shed any more light on the situation.
In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Van Zieks may well be right.
Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Very well, Counsel. Begin your cross-examination.
You can't recall the reason? I know what it was.
The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garrideb. A rather passionate note, in fact.
But Mrs. Garrideb found the note, discovering her husband's little secret.
And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too.
What sordid state of affairs?
Hell on earth.
I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it up. And besides, half of it was wide mark anyway. A likely story.
These waters run very deep.
And what transpired next, after these multiple blows to the face?
That candlestick over said fire to the carpet. Did he change it? Yes, on the day referring to the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Oh, he says that. Okay. Candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though, and the window got open.
Hold it! The fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it?
Oh, the bookcase. My armchair. Anything of mine, really. Just so happens there was some bath water around that evening. I sloshed that about and put it out. A most precarious situation you've put yourself in. Ours is the 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see. The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night. Although, that little mustached Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe.
The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean?
Yes, he receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off.
Actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all of his income to buy books.
Well, anyway, the point is, I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough.
Hold it! Sorry? Would you care to elaborate?
Nothing to say, really. Rather partial to a spot of carving, you see. Pipes and whatnot, fishing tackle, you know, the sort of thing.
It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets too. And then it's my leather work.
I just say, we're always losing knives about the place. And we have dozens of things.
I sell them at the market sometimes. 20 for the price of 19. Needless to say, I snap them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at a meal at times too, instead of a knife and a fork.
Oh, no, Joan. Don't want people thinking I'm so sorry. Ah!
Here we go again with the scaldings. Why are they being so evasive? I imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. They can't bear the thought that it might have been one of their knives that injured the victim. Which is entirely understandable, of course, but still.
Go on with your testimony of witnesses. Sir!
You have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof. Even though there's no other credible possibility if Mr. Natsume's innocent.
Objection!
You forget, my Nipponese friend, that it is yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack.
As if I could forget. If only there was some way to know who handled the knife. I suppose wizardry like that's just a dream. Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Naruhodo. What? You mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists? Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything.
There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation.
But for now, we'll have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion. That this knife found in the victim's back originally was in Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house.
And they could transplant this whole incident to several years in the future. That's the extent of their testimony, is it?
What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo?
Well, I think we've heard all this before, to be honest. Can't say I'm particularly confident that we'll be able to prove anything new from this testimony.
But this cross-examination, it's absolutely essential that we establish how this knife came to be at the scene of the incident.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure both of them must be feeling very worried. Worried that it was in fact a knife belonging to one of them that caused the victim's injury.
If I could find a tiny shred of evidence to support that theory, it'd clinch this trial for us. It would explain everything.
Yes, it would.
So for Soseki-san's sake, we must find that last crucial piece of evidence. Hold it! Even though the room was on fire?
As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw.
That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown, Mr. Naruhodo.
How did she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day?
In all honesty, I don't recall. But I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, a sponge, a napkin.
Excuse me.
You have something to add, sir? Mr. Garadeb!
Don't shoot! Oh, sorry. I beg your pardon.
Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind?
Oh, nothing of any significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, the fire poker I seem to recall.
Ouch.
And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed at a direct hit with every— Ah! Good grief, woman! We're not home now! This is a court of law!
Oh dearie me. I'm ever so sorry, dear.
What's she even doing with the teapot in here?
Honestly, John, I would never throw such things at you. Obviously.
Well, take a look at this then. How do you suppose that happened, Your pipe, sir. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean off with one of those soft projectiles he did, yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that kind of damage.
I see. Your pipe was broken.
It would never have sent it flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now.
Oh, you all want to exaggerate, aren't you, dear?
God, I fucking hate her, dude. Wonder what we should make of this account. It's important.
The defense believes Mr. Garrett's remarks just now are of great significance.
Objection!
This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes as well as hearts may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say.
Might one?
In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir?
Well, I don't see why not.
Oh, dearie me. Here you go again, trying to integrate yourself with a young lady.
Very well. The court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence.
I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruto. I was just feeling rather disappointed that you had your request was turned down.
Oh, no, it's fine. Thanks to Susato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully.
I will do so.
Looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? For some reason, it feels slightly ominous to me. Like he's trying to shout a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garrett's dressing gown.
I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garrett, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this.
Either that or he can't afford to replace it.
Hello.
Oh! Something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe here.
Yes, I saw it.
Something's stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What? What's this?
It's a tiny fragment of metal.
It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be.
Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garrett. Now, if we could return to the crux of the matter. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim?
Okay, let's do it.
Objection!
Mr. Garrett, could I ask you to take a good long look at this, please?
You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing.
You can't?
Used to call me Dead-Eye Dib back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days, I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest.
Oh, he does. Dearie me. It's rather wearing being asked about every other letter and every other word. You must be very dizzy.
What is that? A tiny scrap of metal?
Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. What may appear at first to just be a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence.
Interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence?
It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garrideb's pipe.
My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road?
I am.
What?
When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord.
His butt's all burnt up.
You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well, then. Present the pertinent evidence to the court.
His knife.
Take that!
This is the knife we found in the victim's back. You look closely, you'll see that there's a small piece at the tip of the blade that's missing.
A common issue with inferior blades sold at an unsavory street market. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones.
And what of this particular knife?
No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languished somewhere near the spine of the victim.
Objection!
No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garrideb's pipe.
Good grief! Lord Van Zeeks?
I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match.
Good golly gosh! Order! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery?
This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle.
A miracle?
So Van Zeeks has figured it out, has he?
Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once.
Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garrideb's pipe?
Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony.
Had this thing in my hand as usual time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles she did, yes. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid.
No, dearie me.
During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below, Mrs. Garrideb flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garrideb instead striking the pipe in his hand at the time.
Which caused the tip to break off, of course.
Good lord!
Yes, and that's when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garreteb's pipe.
But the chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1.
Yet there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out the open window.
Ah,
In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garreteb's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below.
oh gosh. Oh dear. Oh. No!
Objection!
A full-bodied theory, I'd give you that. Complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points, plausibly arranged to an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument.
Sorry?
But after all, it's just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because you see, it's spoilt by an insurmountable inconsistency.
An insurmountable what?
Lord Van Zakes, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified?
An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back.
Yeah, in her. Ah!
That's right, you silly little man. Now, don't think. What are you getting so excited about?
Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there's no possible way it could have planted itself in the victim's back.
Ah!
Order, order!
Quite right, you see. That's exactly right. The knife had fallen on her from above. It would have struck her on the top of her head.
Well,
He's lost for words, look.
I know it. I never liked this theory in the first place.
No, I don't know though. What's really happened?
It would appear the defense has made a rather spectacular blunder.
If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history.
You're so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track. Now the way has been blocked completely by one simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency and the theory will stand. Mr. Sato! You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all, and your mind went black. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way will present itself. The key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there.
It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend.
I mean, I already know the answer. She bent down to look at the book. The book fell first, and she was just like, what the fuck just happened? A burning book fell down? Bent down to pick it up, stabbed in the back.
Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed.
Objection!
See, consistency doesn't mean that I was on the wrong track. It means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. It's a test. Yes! The knife fell on the victim from above. There's no way it would have hit her in the middle of the back. Under normal circumstances, that is.
What are you implying?
Counsel?
There's a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency. That can explain how the knife fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer.
Goodness!
Utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak.
It's the last inconsistency. Final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last.
He's here. Pop.
Take that!
This, the fourth book found at the scene. This final piece of evidence the defense will present.
The burnt book.
Is that not Mr. Garrideb's book?
Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand.
But as we all now know, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that.
Quite so. As part of his wholesale transplanting of the crime scene to the opposite side of the road.
That's true. However, as part of his testimony, Constable Beat made an extremely enlightened statement on that point. But what made you place the book in the victim's hand?
Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand.
In other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own volition. And clearly, that must have been before she suffered the knife wound.
Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything.
So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand?
By Chingo! I think I'm beginning to see what might have happened now.
Oh, dearie me.
We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garrideb's household onto the pavement below. At precisely the moment that the victim was walking past.
Yes, at exactly that moment. Young woman was walking along the street in the light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her.
The book I threw.
Yes, Mrs. Garrideb. And what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement?
Well, I really can't imagine it. But I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up.
Yes! That's exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book.
Oh heavens!
And when the woman reached down to pick up the fallen book, what position would her back been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife, straight into the middle of her back. And at that same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume.
Well, I never!
It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor. In the dark and the fog, he didn't see the knife falling on her from above.
Ah!
And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker.
So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place.
No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb?
Oh, the very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that.
There, old bean.
Poor Mrs. Garrideb. No, fuck Mrs. Garrideb. She's an abusive cunt. Fuck her. Fuck her! Mrs. Garrideb sucks ass. Throw her in jail.
Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but
You were throwing knives at your husband.
it was all my fault, wasn't it? I'll take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book. And I threw the knife as well. John dear,
It's all right. I know.
I'm ever so sorry. Truly, I'm sorry!
Poor man's legs don't work.
Lord Van Zeeks, what news of Mrs. Garrideb?
She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events had left her in an especially flustered state. However,
I believe she'll recover in due course. Just give her some leeches and she'll be back up on her feet. There's no cause for concern.
Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions.
There is some good news, however, my lord. I've just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily, and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon.
It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her.
Yes, usually in these trials, you don't get to meet the victim, because usually they're dead.
How wonderful. The woman's out of danger, it seems. Yeah, that's good news.
So, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Yes. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. No, it's me who should be begging your pardon.
Oh no, Mr. Natsume.
That evening, when the young woman collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure that the woman was dead.
Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she'd been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless.
It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog, like they're haunting me.
Poor Soseki-san. His imagination really has gotten the better of him. Yes, poor bad.
So, when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police.
Oops.
Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. And for that, I am truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by this spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zeeks and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both.
Oh!
Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes, my lord.
In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decision regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court?
As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion.
I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times.
Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure.
Sitting in for old Bean while she's out of action, you know. But I know what her decision would be.
Oh, does this mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? It's about time.
I say, I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Not guilty.
Hey, we win. Woo! Yeah.
Very well, Mr. Soseki Natsume. I hereby pronounce you not guilty.
Woo! Yeah.
And finally, Mr. Natsume. No. Yes, Lord, sir. You are now a free man once more. It is my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture. And may you never again be brought before me. Oh, yes, sir. Of course. On my life, I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned.
_20th of February, 3:17 p.m. The Old Bailey. Defendant's antechamber.
Oh, locum.
Wait, you mean me?
Of course. Is there another locum here?
Is there even one?
Compared to the original locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it?
What's wrong with using my actual name?
No, at last, I'm free. I'm free. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation. Heady, hearty happiness, hurrah!
No, I'm pleased. Mr. Natsume's delighted.
Would it be so hard just to say that then?
Locum, you did it. You saved me from the brink.
Well, what happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now.
No, not that. Lovely, loyal, locum lawyer.
Yeah?
I mean, as I said before, I have just never gotten used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me laughing. Look at that little hunchback.
Oh dear, I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. It doesn't sound like it from the trial where everyone was being real xenophobic.
But today, you locum lawyer gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm at the baronial bench before those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth.
when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold the best barrister ever born!"
That's very flattering. We're very pleased for you.
This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan.
An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work?
Ah, there you are, my dear fellows. I was right again. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning.
Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you.
And I see. I'm here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say.
Oh,
The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the best of luck.
It's just finished.
What? No. And has my haste been in vain?
It's you! Herlock Sholmes!
No. Have we met, sir?
this is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes?
Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or that prison cell. I simply couldn't place the curious face in the light.
Charming.
This is all your fault, Herlock Sholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind.
My apologies, sir, but I assure you, I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not?
Ah,
Had she been taken to the hospital more urgently? I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now.
oh,
But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience.
I do feel very badly about how I behaved.
Well, never mind. Now then, what was it you wanted to say to me, sir?
Nothing.
Priceless. Oh, I am sorry. Really, but... that was quite priceless.
Poor Soseki-san.
Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And, it would seem, you were not even found guilty.
But there is no bright side.
Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume?
Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits and now by the Reaper.
Ah, Lord Van Zeeks.
I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. It'll be all
right, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I'll protect you. Hi-ya! With a perfectly executed Susato takedown.
Much as I like being turned on my head, bit of a warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences back to your friends in Japan?
Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon.
Oh,
It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I have been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here, and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize that it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it.
that's very touching, Mr. Natsume.
Or, perhaps in less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world to escape the terror of the Reaper's curse.
That's not it at all! The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen work of my own.
Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san could be an interesting read.
And what about Miss Usato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo?
Sorry? What about us?
Will you return to Japan alongside your mustachioed compatriots?
Why would we?
A week is not yet passed since we arrived in London. And only now does it feel as though we finally found our feet.
And you're accommodated in a hotel at present, are you not?
That's right. But we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted.
Well then, you could take my lodgings.
Oh, the windowless room.
Ah, but what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up with a floor, a ceiling, and walls.
Great.
And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit.
Oh my, an evil spirit?
Oh, yes. It tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call.
Well, think about it, if that's alright.
Perhaps I can offer a more welcome alternative. Would you consider taking lodgings with me?
Really?
Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it's up in the attic, I might add.
You sure it isn't just a storage loft?
I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of.
Oh, this is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to take lodgings in the great detective's office's attic. I'm too overcome for words.
Suggesting we look elsewhere is out then.
Then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist.
I don't know what to say, but thank you. And yes,
Wonderful. Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long.
Somebody's happy.
Locum. I knew you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London.
Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we're gonna have to say goodbye so soon.
Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But Locum, we'll meet again one day.
Yeah, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer.
Hopefully by then, I'll be a successful author.
Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo?
Yes, Mr. Sholmes.
I've little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening.
And so, Soseki-san's innocence successfully established. We rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home. 221B Baker Street.
_20th of February, 4:41 p.m. The attic room. That's a good spot.
So this is to be our new office. Yes. Our office? Rather like the sound of that. Me too. It's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step. But I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now.
So, my dear fellows, do you like the place?
Ah, Mr. Sholmes. Yeah, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it.
Good. I am pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you.
Hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. All right then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid.
So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital?
It's very exciting, actually. Can't help but wonder what adventure awaits us.
Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at this premises. Until I discovered the dark truth of the city of London, that is.
Sorry?
London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights cast the darkest of shadows.
Shadows? What do you mean?
Well, I believe you're too aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So, once again, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London.
Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came. To lift the facade and see the true depth of murk that lay behind it.
Alright. I'm gonna end the stream there. I have to do some recording and stuff later, so I don't want to fuck my voice up completely. And also, like, we ended the episode. It's good, you know? Good times. Not sure if I'll be streaming on Monday. I'm getting vax number 2. So, like, I might be sick. Not sure. I'm getting like a mix. Like first I got Pfizer, and now I'm getting Moderna, which apparently it's more likely you'll get sick. So I'll probably be sick. And then on Tuesday, I might still be sick. It's hard to say. On Wednesday, I'm doing the 24-24, which is 24 hours, 24 pages, which I will be streaming. So I'll definitely be streaming on Wednesday. On Thursday, I'll most likely just be sleeping. And also I have a gym thing. And then on Friday, I'll also be streaming. So yeah. 2 days of streaming. Tomorrow. No, next week. Anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you Wednesday at least. Maybe Tuesday. But definitely Wednesday.